Hi, and welcome to Long Live the Queen, where we talk about the women who made history. And by we, I mean the royal we, because it's just me. Today we're going to talk about Joan of France. Joan of France was born on April 23rd in the year of our Lord 1464, under the shadowed spires of the Château d'Amboise, where the Loire's whispers mingled with courtly schemes. For our timeline girlies, this was a year before the League of the Public Weals rebellion shook France. Joan of France was born to King Louis XI, the universal spider, a schemer so cunning he could outwit a demon, and Queen Charlotte, a sharp-minded matriarch whose quiet strength held the palace together. But Joan's arrival was no fairy tale. She was the second daughter, trailing her sister Anne, 3 years older, and the court's golden child, all poise and promise. Worse, Joan was born with a hunched back and a limp, her frail body branded malformed, by a court that clutched its pearls and whispered, sterile? Useless? A tiny princess in a velvet cradle, her soft eyes meeting a world already writing her off. The tapestried walls buzzed with gossip. Nobles, sneering at Louis XI, his spidey senses tingling, began spinning her into his dynastic web. Joan grew up in Charlotte's court, a glittering cage of velvet gowns and venomous tongues, surrounded by her mother's unmarried sisters and a posse of rosary-clicking advisors dishing gossip over embroidery. Joan learned early that princesses weren't always loved. Her grandmother, Anne of Cyprus, died before her birth, leaving Charlotte as her anchor. Big sister Anne shone like a Renaissance star, while Joan hobbled in her shadow, her limp earning her pitying glances from lords who didn't see her heart of steel. But Joan? She was rocking that underdog vibe. Her faith was a spark that would soon blaze. At 7, in a candlelit chapel, the Virgin Mary slid into her DMs with a prophecy. Girl, you're gonna found a religious order in my mom Anne's honor. Divine flex alert. While the court pitied her flaws, Joan was chatting with heaven. Her destiny bigger than any crown. By 1466, Louis XI, ever the shady mastermind, had betrothed 2-year-old Joan to her second cousin once removed, Louis, Duke of Orleans, a chubby-cheeked toddler with a velvet cape and a title as big as his future ego. As first Prince of the Blood, Louis was next in line, if Louis XI's line faltered, making Joan's betrothal a cold-blooded play. The Spider King wasn't dreaming of her happily ever after. He was banking on her rumored infertility to snuff out the Orleans line, his rival cousins. Savage move, Dad. The court buzzed with scandal, goblets clinking as nobles whispered about this dynastic dunk. Joan, oblivious in her cradle, already had a crown-shaped target on her back. Her father was playing chess with her future. That December, Charlotte bore Prince Louis, a male heir that sent trumpets blaring. But tragedy struck. Baby Louis died within the day, plunging the palace into mourning. Charlotte wept behind velvet curtains, and Louis XI snarled at fate. His web was fraying. By 1470, 6-year-old Joan was navigating a court of whispered prayers when Charlotte delivered Prince Charles, a frail boy who clung to life as Dauphin, displacing Joan's betrothed, Louis, down the succession ladder. The court toasted Charles like he was the Renaissance Messiah, while Joan's queenly dreams faded like a candle in a drafty hall. 2 years later, in 1472, Charlotte bore Prince Francois, a spare to bolster the throne, but he died at just 14 months in 1473, leaving Charles as the sole heir and Louis, Joan's husband, as the spare once more. Joan, now 9, watched her sister Anne, 12, wed Peter, Duke of Bourbon, 35, in a glittering but creepy ceremony. The age gap a scandalous ballad. Joan's heart ached as Anne left for Bourbon, the court's whispers growing louder about her own cursed frame. Joan was a pious child, but let's not mistake Joan's piety for passivity. Behind that soft voice and halo glow was a girl boss with a library. Unlike many noblewomen of her time, Joan was educated. Latin, she read it fluently. Theology, ate it for breakfast. While her peers were memorizing court dances, Joan was knee-deep in scripture, soaking up the works of the church fathers like spiritual caffeine. Her intellect was sharp, precise, and she didn't just consume holy texts, she wrote her own. That's right, when she founded the Order of Annunciation, the rule she penned for her sisters wasn't ghost-written by a monk in a dusty cloister. It came from her own pen, her own prayers, her own fire. Medieval mic drop. This wasn't just a woman of faith. This was a mystic CEO, drafting doctrine by candlelight. Her mind lit with visions of Latin verbs. While the world whispered crippled and cursed, Joan was building a spiritual legacy that would outlast empires. In 1476, 12-year-old Joan marched down the aisle of a velvet-draped cathedral, her heart pounding under a gown that couldn't hide her hunched back. Her groom? Louis, Duke of Orleans, 14, first Prince of the Blood, and a pouty teen who didn't sign up for this. Incense swirling, banners flapping, but the vibes more funeral than fiesta. Louis XI forced this match to choke out the Orleans line. Joan's rumored sterility, his secret weapon. Rude, Spider King. Louis glared like Joan was a tax bill, his resentment sharper than a dagger. Joan, her soft face glowing with grace, said her vows, her faith a shield against his cold shoulder. For 7 years, as Duchess of Orleans, she ruled a frosty household. Louis treating her like a ghost in his Loire Valley chateau. The court snickered. No pregnancy after years of marriage. Her flawed body was a punchline. But Joan? She was clutching her rosary like a lifeline, her prayers a fortress. Sources note her pleasing countenance. Medieval code for, she's got that inner glow. Kind, humble, and chill. Joan was the friend who'd share her last prayer bead, and still bless your messy soul. Her charm winning loyal hearts despite the court's shade. In August 1483, Louis XI, 60, succumbed to apoplexy, his web unraveling. The king is dead, long live the king. Joan's brother, Charles VIII, 13, took the throne, a frail boy with a cough that haunted physicians. Months later in December, Charlotte died at 42, perhaps of tuberculosis or grief. They did say she died right after her husband, and maybe she was in love with the Spider King. I don't get it. Joan, 19, was orphaned, her world a shattered stained glass window. Charles, too young to rule, needed a regent, and the court buzzed like a medieval reality show. Louis, 21, Joan's husband and the first Prince of the Blood, seemed like the obvious pick. Tall, tilted, next in line. But his feud with the Valois and the cocky vibe screamed hard pass. Instead, Joan's sister Anne, 22, and her husband Peter, Duke of Bourbon, 45, seized the regency, steering Charles' reign amidst whispers of betrayal. Louis, snubbed like a jester at a feast, didn't sulk. He rebelled. Pacing his Orleans castle, his velvet cape swirling, he raised an army, banners flapping, launching the Mad War. And yes, that's the name of the war, the Mad War. Against Anne and Charles from 1484 to 1488. So it's a family feud, but with armies. Joan, stranded in Orleans, was persona non grata, her heart aching for her siblings, while Louis played warlord. She knelt in chapels, rosary clicking, praying for peace. But the court mocked her childless marriage, her body a cruel jest in Louis's camp. By 1488, a shaky truce ended the war, but Joan remained exiled from her family. Anne raising a son, Joan's nephew, in Paris, a child she barely knew. She didn't even get to be fun Aunt Joni. Meanwhile, in 1488, the Duke of Brittany died, leaving his duchy to 11-year-old Anne of Brittany. By 1490, this teen firecracker arranged a proxy marriage to Maximilian, Holy Roman Emperor, 31. A legally binding but unconsummated union. France, led by Charles and Anne, cried foul. An emperor on two borders of France was a no-go. War erupted again, and by late 1491, Charles' forces crushed Brittany, forcing 14-year-old Anne to wed him on December 6, 1491, in a hostile takeover marriage. For a year, she was technically tied to Maximilian, a diplomatic scandal. She had 2 husbands, until the papal annulment in 1492 freed her. Charles, now 21, strutted. His minority was over. Brittany was in his grip. Joan, in Orleans, prayed through the chaos, her husband's ambition a storm she couldn't calm. In June 1491, Joan, Louis, Anne, Peter, Charles, and his queen, Anne of Brittany, swore a sacred oath in Paris to love and protect each other, a rare unity in a fractured kingdom. Joan, serene and gray, her hand trembling. Louis, his eyes glinting with ambition. Anne, sharp as a blade. And Charles, frail but hopeful, beside his defiant queen. But no oath could hold fate's tide. Anne returned to Bourbon with her infant daughter. Joan followed Louis back to Orleans, and Charles faced a childless future, his 6 children with Anne of Brittany all dead before 1498, their cradles silent. On April 7, 1498, Charles, 27, struck his head on a decorative door frame at Amboise en route to tennis. He played and then collapsed into a coma at 2 p.m., dying 9 hours later. Now it's time for Christina's Conspiracy Corner. Modern scholars doubt a head injury like that could have killed him. Epilepsy? Maybe. It was tied to his frail health. It's likelier than the head bump killing him. But a king dead in 9 hours? Suspicious AF. Was it poison? A court plot to shift the throne? No proof, but the vibes are shady. The king is dead. Long live the king. The new king, Louis, 36, became King Louis XII, or, as he will be known, Louis the Fortunate. Everyone who needed to die did die, and he became the king against all odds. His crown born of his brother-in-law's mysterious end. Joan, 34, was the Queen of France overnight. Her 22-year-old marriage, now the dynasty's fatal flaw. With no heirs, the Valois-Orleans line dangled by a thread. Louis, eyeing Brittany, moved fast to annul his marriage to Joan. Married at 14, he treated her like a dusty tapestry, and now he claimed the union was invalid, citing her physical condition and a bold-faced, "we never consummated" lie. Gross, Louis. Joan, saintly and dignified, fought back in court. Witnesses testified to her grace, but Pope Alexander VI, swayed by French gold, approved the annulment in December 1498. Papal shade alert. Joan was out. Anne of Brittany was in. And Louis smirked like he'd won the Renaissance. The annulment stench, underhanded and cruel, clung to Louis. History branded it morally reprehensible. Joan, her crown stripped, humiliated, retired, her eyes likely rolling at her ex's audacity. In 1501, Joan, 37, founded the Order of Annunciation of the Blessed Virgin Mary in Bruges, rewriting the nun game like a Renaissance mixtape. A gray-habited queen, quill in hand, penning a rule inspired by that age 7 divine DM from Mary. The vibe? Live like Mary, slay like Mary, with 10 virtues. Purity, humanity, charity, as the ultimate girl boss code. Unlike elite orders, Joan's convent welcomed all women, noble or peasant, because salvation doesn't check your bloodline. Her candlelit halls buzzed with prayer, her sisters sewing habits and serving the poor like it was their day job, centered on the Immaculate Conception, centuries before its 1854 dogma. Joan's order was Catholic TikTok avant-garde. In 1502, Pope Alexander VI, that Borgia enabler, gave it a holy thumbs up, unable to deny her saintly glow-up. By 1505, Joan, 40, was frail, her body worn by fasting, prayer, and a broken heart. Rising before dawn, she mentored her sisters, her calloused fingers stitching altar linens, her gentle authority training them for spiritual warfare. No jeweled crowns, no feasts, just silence, sacrifice, and radiant clarity. Her convent was her court, her prayers her policies, her life a rule written in example. On February 4, 1505, she slipped away in a candlelit cell, whispering a final prayer to Mary as her nuns wept. No royal fanfare, just a saint's quiet exit, her legacy stitched into her order's soul, humble, holy, unbroken. In 1505, Joan's grave became a miracle hotspot, like a medieval Coachella for the faithful. Pilgrims flocked, crutches abandoned as fevers vanished and limbs healed. In 1562, Huguenots desecrated her tomb. Rude. But found her body incorrupt, looking like she was just napping. Not like she had been dead for 57 years. Miracles piled up, earning her beatification by Pope Benedict XIV in 1742, and canonization by Pope Pius XII in 1950. The court once called her flawed, but St. Joan was healing souls from the afterlife. Her haters silenced one prayer at a time. Joan of France was a titan, scorned as a cursed princess, betrayed by her husband and used by her father. She turned the pain into purpose, founding the Order of the Annunciation and earning sainthood. She proved resilience isn't just surviving, it's building something eternal. Her miracles, an incorrupt body? Iconic. Joan's story is a story of slaying with grace, faith, and a heart no king could break. So whisper a prayer to St. Joan. She's got receipts and results. And that is where I'll leave it for now. What did you think of St. Joan? You can share your thoughts with me at longlivethequeenpodcast@gmail.com. Slide into my DMs on Facebook and Instagram at longlivethequeenpodcast, or join the Royal Court on Patreon, where Fridays we dive into book club. The link is in the show description. Come vibe with us. Long live to all the queens out there. And until next time, bye.
You'll be remembered.
Thanks for listening.